The mountains had always been alive, or at least, that was what the villagers whispered. They spoke of shadows that moved without wind, of trees that seemed to watch, and of voices carried on the cold, thin air. 5 years ago, 2 girls had vanished into these peaks. The villagers never found them, and no trail ever led to an answer. Some said the mountains kept them. Others claimed darker forces had claimed their lives. At the edge of these jagged cliffs lived Ilara, a woman who had made the mountains her home. Her cabin was built from stone and timber, almost invisible to the untrained eye. She moved with the quiet authority of someone who had tamed the wild around her, and yet there was an edge of mystery that kept everyone at a distance. She was known as the Mountain Woman, a figure both feared and revered. Her only companion was Ash, a large, dark-coated dog with eyes as sharp as the peaks themselves. Loyal and vigilant, Ash knew every curve of the cliffs, every hidden path, and every danger that might wait. On a particularly cold morning, Ash ran ahead into the snow-laden forest near the cabin, barking sharply. Ilara emerged from the cabin, her cloak swirling around her as she followed. Snow crunched beneath her boots, and the air smelled of frost and pine. Ilara knelt, brushing flakes away to reveal a small, delicate glove. Its embroidery faded, but still recognizable. Her breath caught. It was one of the missing girl's gloves. Memories she had tried to bury stirred uncomfortably within her, echoes of laughter, of voices lost to the mountains. Word spread quickly. Soon, people from the villages began whispering that perhaps the girls were not gone, that the mountains had not yet finished their secrets. Among those drawn by curiosity was Kale, a young cartographer. He was tasked with mapping the mountains for the kingdom. But more than that, he had a restless curiosity that always led him into danger. Kale arrived at the edge of the forest where Ilara's cabin stood, the morning fog curling around the trees like ghostly fingers. He was tall and lean, with eyes that seemed to measure everything around him, searching for meaning. When he first saw Ilara, he paused. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, poised and silent, yet with a presence that seemed to command the mountains themselves. Ilara's voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't be here. These mountains take more than they give." "I'm here because of the glove," Kyle said, holding it gently in his gloved hand. "It belongs to one of the missing girls. I need to know what happened." Ilara's eyes narrowed. Curiosity can be dangerous. The mountains are patient, but they do not forgive foolishness. "I'm not afraid," Kale said, meeting her gaze. He meant it not as bravado, but with the quiet certainty of someone who had seen enough loss to know fear well. Ilara studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "Very well. But you follow my rules, and you follow Ash. If you wander, you will not be found." Together, they moved deeper into the forest. The snow grew thicker, the trees taller, their branches bowing under the weight of frost. Every sound was amplified. The snap of a twig, the rustle of an animal, the distant rumble of wind across cliffs. Kale tried to speak, but found that words seemed small here. There was something about the way the mountains held silence, the way the air seemed charged with memory. Even Ilara, who walked confidently, seemed to carry a tension that suggested she, too, felt the weight of the past. Finally, they reached the cabin. It was larger than it seemed from the outside, with a hearth that glowed warmly, casting long shadows against stone walls lined with books, maps, and strange carvings. Ash curled at the hearth, his ears alert, as if expecting danger at any moment. Ilara placed the glove on the table and traced its embroidery with her fingers. "I found it near the cliffs," she said softly. It was as if it was waiting for someone to notice. Kale watched her, noticing the faint tremor in her hands. "Do you believe they are still here?" he asked, cautiously. Ilara shook her head, but her eyes did not leave the glove. "I don't know. Sometimes I hear them, Sometimes, I think I see them in the snow. These mountains, they hold more than just wind and stone. They hold memories. Kale nodded, feeling a strange pull toward her, toward the mystery she embodied. There was sadness in her voice. Yes, but also strength, a raw, magnetic force. He realized that whatever had happened to the girls was tied to Alara herself, though he could not yet see how. As the day passed, they examined the area where Ash had found the glove. Tracks in the snow suggested movement, footsteps too faint to belong to humans. But clearly, something had been there. The further they followed, the more the forest seemed to close around them, shadows deepening unnaturally, the wind whispering through the pines like soft voices. Alara stopped abruptly near a hollow in the cliffside. "This is where it started," she said. Her voice was almost reverent, as though naming the place would call the past alive. She knelt, brushing snow away to reveal a jagged stone with symbols etched into it, old, almost forgotten, and strangely alive. Kael leaned closer, tracing the symbols with his gloved fingers. "What is this?" Elara's gaze was fixed on the stones. A boundary. Between the living and something else. Something that doesn't forgive mistakes. Kael shivered, though he wasn't sure if it was from cold or from the sense of being watched. Ash growled low in his throat, his body tense. Then, faintly, carried on the wind, a voice spoke soft, almost a whisper, and unmistakably human. Kael. He froze. His name carried on the wind like a memory he had long tried to forget. Elara's eyes widened slightly, but she said nothing. The mountains held their breath. Kael looked at her. "Did you hear that?" Alara nodded slowly. "They are here. Or something of them is. And now, by coming this far, you've heard them too." Kael swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. The forest seemed to pulse around them, the snow falling silently, hiding secrets that had waited years to be revealed. He realized then that the mountains were more than stone and ice. They were alive with history, with grief, with longing. And perhaps, in some strange way, they had been waiting for him, for them both, to come. Alara turned away from the stone, her face unreadable, her hand brushing a lock of dark hair from her face. "Stay close. The mountains do not like the unwary, and they will test you, in ways you cannot yet imagine." Kael nodded. He couldn't explain why. But he felt the first stirrings of something unfamiliar. A connection not only to Alara, but to the mountains themselves, to the lost girls, to the secret that had waited 5 years in silence. Ash barked sharply, running toward a narrow passage in the cliffs. Alara and Kael followed, hearts beating faster, senses alert. The passage was narrow, carved naturally but shaped by unseen hands. As they entered, the wind died, leaving only the sound of their own footsteps and the faint echo of a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. A chill ran down Kael's spine. He looked at Alara, who was pale, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Are we close?" he asked. She nodded, her lips barely moving. "Closer than you think. But remember, what waits ahead is not kind. It has its own rules." The passage narrowed further, darkness deepening. And then Ash stopped abruptly, ears forward, hackles raised. The dog growled low, and Kyle felt a prickle of fear he had never known in these mountains before. And then, faintly, almost impossibly, a whisper echoed. "Kael, you shouldn't be here." Alara's hand tightened on the edge of the stone wall. Her eyes met his. "It knows you are here. And now, there is no turning back." Kael swallowed hard, but he did not step back. Somewhere deep in his chest, a strange resolve grew. The mountains had called him, and he would follow, wherever they led, even into the shadows of the past, into secrets long buried, and into the heart of the mountain woman herself. The wind howled through the cliffs, carrying with it the faint scent of pine, frost, and something older, something alive. And as they moved deeper into the mountain's secret, neither of them noticed that the shadows seemed to shift, almost as if the mountains themselves were watching, waiting, and breathing with anticipation. The narrow passage twisted deeper into the mountain, and with every step, the air grew colder, heavier, as if it carried centuries of sorrow. Cale's breath formed clouds that hung in the dim light, and Ash padded silently beside him, alert to every sound. Alara moved ahead with confidence, though her eyes flickered occasionally toward the shadows, as if expecting them to move on their own. "This passage," Cale whispered, his voice echoing off the walls. "It feels alive." Alara did not answer immediately. Her eyes traced the carvings on the stone, ancient symbols, faded yet intricate, twisting around each other like serpents frozen in time. "It is alive," she finally said. "These mountains remember everything. Every footstep, every voice, every loss." Cale shivered, brushing his fingers against the carvings. They were smooth and cold, yet there was a strange warmth beneath his fingertips, as if the stone pulsed faintly with some hidden life. "And the girls, you think they are still here?" Elara's jaw tightened. "I do not know, but something of them remains, something that does not rest." Her eyes met his, sharp and unwavering. "And now, by being here, you've joined them in that waiting." They walked in silence, broken only by the occasional drip of water echoing from somewhere deep within the mountain. Then, a faint light shimmered ahead, a soft, golden glow that seemed to hover above the ground. Cale slowed, his curiosity pulling him forward. "What is that?" Elara's hand shot out to stop him. "Do not touch it." But Cale's eyes were fixed. The glow seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat, and within it he thought he saw movement figures, fleeting and indistinct. One of them raised a hand, as though beckoning. He felt a shiver run through him. "Elara, they are here." She nodded, her face pale. "Or something like them. The mountains keep more than just memory. They hold fragments of souls, echoes of what once was. The girls, they may be trapped between worlds." Cale swallowed hard. The thought made his stomach twist. He had expected the mountains to be dangerous, maybe haunted. But he had not imagined something like this. Living memories, spirits, echoes of the past intertwined with the stone itself. Ash growled low, and the golden glow flickered. The figures became clearer. 2 girls, translucent but unmistakably human, their eyes wide and frightened. One of them whispered, barely audible over the stillness, "Help, please." Cale felt his chest tighten. He wanted to step forward, to reach them, but Elara's hand on his arm stopped him. "Do not touch them. They are not free yet." "Then, what do we do?" Cale asked, his voice trembling slightly. Elara's eyes softened for a moment, though the tension in her shoulders remained. "We follow the signs. The mountains give clues, not answers, and we must be ready for tests. For the truth is never simple here." "Well," the girl's whispers drifted through the passage, mingling with the mountain wind. "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't." Their voices carried fear, but also something else, hope, fragile and trembling. As they moved forward, Cale noticed that the walls began to change. The rough stone became smoother, carved with images of people, animals, and strange, twisting shapes. Some figures seemed joyful, dancing in circles. Others were trapped in cages, screaming silently. He looked at Alara. "What is all this?" "They are memories," she said. "Of those who came before. Of those who stayed too long. Of those who lost themselves to these mountains. And these carvings, they can guide us, if we understand them." Kael traced one of the images, a young girl reaching toward a shadow that loomed over her. He felt a pang in his chest. This is one of them, isn't it? Ilara nodded. Yes. And if we are to help them, we must be willing to risk ourselves. The mountains will test not just our bodies, but our hearts. The path opened into a wide cavern, and the golden light pulsed stronger here. It revealed more of the girls, their faces etched with fear and longing. One of them stepped forward, and Kael could almost hear her breathing, though no sound came from her lips. This is it, Ilara said softly. The heart of the mountain. Kael looked around, awestruck. The cavern walls shimmered as though made of glass, reflecting not only their images but the countless spirits trapped within. The golden light seemed to radiate from a pool in the center, a still, dark water that reflected the stars above, though no sky was visible. Kael felt drawn to it, but Ilara's hand on his shoulder stopped him. Do not touch it. The pool shows the truth, but it can also take more than you are ready to give. He looked into the water anyway. Shadows shifted beneath the surface, and then he saw it. The faces of the missing girls. Staring back at him. They were not smiling, nor were they screaming. They were waiting. And among their eyes, he glimpsed something more. A presence, darker and older, that seemed to watch him as intently as he watched it. Kael stepped back. Ilara's voice was low, almost a whisper. The guardian. Something bound to these mountains. It does not forgive, it does not forget, and it does not rest until it has tested all who enter its domain. He shivered, a mixture of fear and awe coursing through him. Yet beneath it all, he felt something else, a strange connection to Ilara, to the girls, to the mountains themselves. He could not explain it, but he knew he would follow her wherever she led, into shadows, into danger, even into heartbreak if it was necessary. Ilara moved closer to the pool, her eyes reflecting the golden light. To free them, we must confront the truth of what happened here. The mountains will not tell us willingly. We must seek the memory, face the darkness, and prove our hearts are strong enough. Kael nodded, though he did not fully understand. He could feel the tension between them growing. A mixture of respect, curiosity, and something warmer, something that made the fear and awe of the place almost bearable. Are you ready? Ilara asked, her voice quiet but firm. Kael took a deep breath. I am. Together, they stepped closer to the pool. The golden light wrapped around them, and the reflections of the girls grew clearer. One of them reached out, her hand trembling, and Kael felt a pull, as if the girl's hope was reaching into his soul. Ilara touched the water with one finger, and the surface rippled. The golden light danced across the walls, illuminating the carvings, the figures, the trapped spirits. The girls' voices grew stronger, mingling with the wind. Help! Help! Kael reached out, but stopped just short of touching the water. Ilara's hand found his, and for a brief moment, their fingers intertwined. There was no need for words. They shared a resolve, a silent promise to face whatever came next together. Suddenly, the pool shuddered. Shadows moved beneath its surface, swirling faster, darker. The girls' images flickered, and then one of them cried out a soundless scream that echoed in Kael's chest. The guardian had awakened. Ilara pulled Kael back slightly. It knows we are here, and it will test us, in ways we cannot yet imagine. Kael swallowed hard, feeling a surge of fear mixed with determination. Ilara's eyes softened, just for a moment. Yes, together. Ash barked sharply, his fur bristling, as the shadows from the pool stretched toward them. The golden light warped, reflecting twisted shapes on the cavern walls. The mountains seemed to groan, as if the very stones themselves were alive with memory and judgment. Kael's heart pounded. He realized that the danger was not only in the shadows, but in the choices they would make, trusting each other, trusting the mountains, trusting themselves. And somewhere in the depths of the cavern, he felt the girl's hope intertwine with their own courage, fragile yet unyielding. Ilara stepped forward, her voice ringing with quiet authority. "Guardian of the mountain, we come not to take, but to free. We offer our hearts, our courage, and our will. Let the girls go. And test us, if you must." The shadows paused, swirling in hesitation. The pool trembled, and the golden light flickered. Then, a single hand emerged. A ghostly, pale hand reaching toward them. Kael met Ilara's gaze. There was fear, yes, but also a strange, unspoken trust. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. And in that moment, the mountain seemed to exhale, carrying with it whispers of the past, promises of redemption, and the faintest stirrings of hope. The cavern trembled as the shadows from the pool stretched toward them. Kael and Ilara stood side by side, their hands brushing briefly, sharing a silent understanding. Fear was only the first test. The guardian of the mountain waited, a presence older than time, patient and relentless. Ilara took a deep breath. The mountain will not release the girls easily. It tests hearts, not strength. Trust me, Kael, and trust yourself. Kael nodded, his pulse quickening. He looked at the spectral girls. They hovered near the pool's edge, their faces etched with hope and fear. "We can't fail them," he said quietly. Ilara's eyes softened. "We won't. Together, we can face this." The guardian moved. Shadows rippled across the cavern, forming shapes that mimicked their deepest fears. Kael saw figures of the missing girls, but twisted, screaming silently, eyes hollowed. Ash growled, his fur bristling. The air thickened, carrying whispers of the lost, echoing grief that had built up over centuries. Kael felt a pull in his chest, a mix of fear and sorrow, but he remembered Ilara's words, "The mountain tests hearts." And he realized that to move forward, they needed more than courage. They needed trust, hope, and connection. Ilara stepped closer to the pool, her hand hovering over the shimmering water. "We must show the mountain we are united. Only together can we release what is trapped." Kael reached for her hand, their fingers entwined, and warmth spread through him, steadying the fear. For a moment, the shadows paused, as if sensing the bond between them. Ilara's voice rang out, firm and clear. "We do not come to take. We come to free. We offer our hearts, our will, and our courage. Let the girls go." The pool pulsed violently, golden light clashing with darkness. Shadows writhed and shrieked silently, testing every resolve. Kael and Ilara stood unwavering, holding on to each other and the fragile hope of the trapped girls. A sudden surge of wind rushed through the cavern. The spectral girls cried out, voices joining in unison with the mountain's whisper. "Please. Help." Kael's heart ached. He stepped forward, touching the water. His hand trembled, but he felt warmth strange, comforting, alive. Ilara followed, her touch joining his. Together, their presence seemed to calm the pool. The golden light spreading further, pushing shadows backward. The guardian shifted, a towering form made of shadow and light. It spoke not with words, but with feeling. A weight pressing into Kael's mind. "You have courage, but do you have heart?" Kael met Ilara's gaze, and he understood. This was not a test of strength or skill. It was a test of connection, trust, empathy, and sacrifice. The guardian would not let go unless they proved their bond, their willingness to face the darkness without losing themselves. He nodded to Ilara. "We face it together," he said. Ilara's lips curved slightly, a faint smile in the dim light. Together. The shadows lunged, forming figures that mirrored their fears. KL saw his own past losses, faces of those he had failed, echoes of grief he had tried to bury. Ilara saw visions of exile, of pain, and isolation. Both flinched, but neither let go of the other's hand. Then something shifted. The golden light from the pool flared, surrounding them in warmth that pushed the shadows back. The guardian's presence loomed, then receded slightly, testing, judging, acknowledging their resolve. Kale felt the weight of the mountain lift slightly, and the girls' forms became clearer. They were still faint, but their fear softened, hope flickering in their eyes. One of them reached toward Kale, her hand trembling. He could almost feel her gratitude, a spark of life, longing to return fully. Ilara whispered, "Now, Kale, you must give the final offering, not of strength, but of your will. Let go of fear, and open your heart fully to the mountain." Kale closed his eyes. He felt the mountain's pulse beneath the cavern floor, the history of loss, the echo of sorrow, and the fragile hope of the girls. Slowly, he let go of his fear, opening his heart fully, his compassion, courage, and the connection he shared with Ilara flowing into the pool. The golden light surged, filling the cavern with warmth. The guardian recoiled, then slowly withdrew, its presence fading. The girls' forms solidified slightly, their fear replaced by a quiet relief. Ash barked happily, sensing the change. Ilara's hand squeezed Kale's. "It works. We've done it. The mountain accepts us." Kale smiled, though exhaustion weighed him down. "Are they free?" Ilara nodded. "Their souls are released from the shadows. The mountain still remembers them, but they are no longer trapped. We did not take anything, only gave courage, hope, and trust." The girls' images lingered for a moment, then vanished, leaving behind a sense of peace and closure. Kale felt a strange ache, missing their presence, but also relief that they were safe in whatever world they belonged to now. The cavern seemed to exhale. The wind carried a softer, gentler sound now, no longer harsh or accusing, but like a quiet blessing. Light from the opening above began to filter in, golden and warm. Kale looked at Ilara. You've carried this for years, haven't you? All the solitude, all the pain, for them." Ilara's eyes were distant for a moment, reflecting shadows and light. "I could not leave them. The mountains demanded patience and vigilance, and I was bound here, until someone with courage came, and I." Kale felt a pull toward her, stronger than he had ever felt before. "I'm glad I came," he said softly, "and I'm glad it was with you." Ilara's lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. "But this is not just about gratitude. It is about trust, Kale. About believing that even in darkness, there can be light." They descended together from the cavern, stepping carefully over snow-dusted rocks. The wind no longer whispered warnings, only carried the faint scent of pine and mountain air. Ash padded ahead, content, his work complete for now. The sky above the peaks was beginning to lighten, the first rays of dawn brushing the horizon with soft gold. Kale looked at Ilara, noticing how the light caught in her dark hair, how her eyes reflected both strength and vulnerability. A connection had formed between them, not born of romance alone, but of shared courage, mutual respect, and the intimacy of facing fear together. As they approached the forest's edge, Kale paused. "Do you ever leave these mountains?" he asked, half curious, half hoping for an answer. Ilara shook her head. "I have tried, but the mountains, they are part of me now, and part of me will always belong here, until someone proves they can share that burden." Kale stepped closer. "Then let me share it with you, not just for the mountains, but for you." For a moment, silence fell between them, heavy, but tender. The mountains stretched around them, ancient, eternal, watching, acknowledging, and in that quiet, both realized that whatever the future held, they had already forged a bond that could survive fear, shadows, and the weight of centuries. They walked back toward the cabin, hand in hand, Ash trailing happily behind. The snow sparkled under the rising sun, and the air was alive with a gentle magic, one that whispered of closure, of hope, and of new beginnings. At the cabin, Kale turned to Ilara. "Do you think they will ever come back? The girls, I mean." Ilara's eyes softened. "Perhaps not in form, but they will live on in the mountains, in the stories, and in those who remember. And that is enough." Kale nodded. "Then let's make sure we remember. Together." Ilara's hand brushed his cheek lightly, a gesture tender yet fleeting, as if acknowledging that connection and trust could be just as powerful as any magic the mountains held. "Together," she whispered. Ash barked, shaking the snow from his coat. The mountains seemed to respond. A faint rumble beneath the earth. Not threatening, but protective. It was as if the mountains themselves were giving their approval, their blessing. Kale looked at the peaks, at the shifting light, at the quiet strength of the woman beside him, and he knew that life would never be the same. The mountains had tested them, the shadows had tried to break them, and yet here they were alive, together, and changed forever. And as they stepped into the first warm rays of morning, Kael felt the pull of the mountains in a new way, not as something to fear, but as a living force, tied to courage, trust, and the beginnings of something he had never expected, hope, and perhaps love.